Okay. Hello there. This is Kevin Pascal, and you're tuned into the Hinted Neuron podcast. Today on the podcast, you hear me talk about Brian Carpenter. He's the author of the book, How to Escape an Insane Asylum. He has been in and out of jail so many times in his life. He has escaped 2 asylums in his lifetime. And, his story is really amazing. And I wanted to have that discussion with him about what he passed through, what he faced. You'll notice that he's not such an eloquent person, and you would forgive his voice, but just listen to his story. You could, gain 1 or 2. He's also a funny person at some point. And that is it for Brian Carpenter. If you like this podcast, please leave a review with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Hinted Neuron. Leave your questions, comments, or concerns for me about anything on there. Also share this podcast with your friends, with your network, and those who like to listen to stories, to conversations, and all those. And now I bring to you Brian Carpenter. So I guess there's a lot we could talk about right now. Let's just start with your experience during those phases that you documented in the book. What was it like to you? And the whole series, I felt like there was so much.
The hardest part about it was being in the cycle, this never-ending cycle that was nonstop and inescapable, of in and out, in and out, in and out, in jail, in the hospital, in jail, in the hospital, in jail. An hour wouldn't go by from being arrested to going into the hospital. I couldn't even walk back home before I got arrested or went back to the hospital. It was crazy. That was the hardest part.
Your encounter with the police, you said a lot of things about the police and how they treated you. How did you see them, at that particular moment? Because there are so many things you documented about the police. I felt like they treated people in a very inhumane manner. And
policy of must arrest and no tickets, and you give the homeless people, you arrest the homeless people instead of giving them tickets. And then that's 2 times you have to go to jail, one for getting the ticket and then the time seeing the judge. And there's no food in jail, and you're there for 15 hours. And the policy of must arrest is crazy. There's only one time that they were really brutal, except for one officer. One officer had it out for me. He think I was his little play toy. Tried to break my arm, and I still have this knot in my back from it. But he just dropped me off in the jail without a ticket or anything. And they were like, they didn't know why I was there. And the thing is being misdiagnosed. A doctor that didn't give a shit, didn't give a rat a behind for his patients. I know he was paid per commission for a multi-$1,000 injection. That made me that was misdiagnosed completely. He diagnosed me as schizophrenic before he even met me. How is that possible?
That's insane.
And the doctor before that asked an hour's worth of questions, and then they changed doctors, and yet here are the nurses wanting to inject me even before I even meet the doctor. Crazy. And he changed my diagnosis to be what? You just look at the police reports and that tells you the truth? I don't know.
Let's start from the top, the very beginning, about how, your experience started, because it's like we started in the middle or towards the end somehow. Let's start from the top about how, how this whole thing started. What brought about, what was your first encounter with, the police or the misdiagnosis and all these things? How did it start?
Well, honestly, since first grade, I've been taking medication for ADD. And in middle school, the medication stopped, the Ritalin, which is a methamphetamine, stopped working. And I started being really serious and angry towards everything and everything. And they couldn't figure out what it was. And I stopped taking meds in high school. What really happened is I went to jail, gave me a med in jail. And then I just kept taking it. And then that just started a snowball.
How old were you that time?
I must have been 24.
Yeah, just starting life.
Yeah. Go to jail, get prescribed a med, and then it just and you're trying to do good because they say you're supposed to take your meds, but when you do, it just causes more problems than it creates, than it fixes.
What medications were you put on, from the first time and maybe other times in the hospital?
There's a list of them, and the one that was the injection was risperidol, which was for schizophrenics, which was in Sistema Invega was the injection that they gave me that made me go insane. On top of them building an apartment complex, I told you they were building this apartment complex. The church sold a building, and the money was to go to how is Section 8, right? And I was going to get an apartment for about $225 a month right there in Santa Barbara, which is right by the ocean. Walk to the beach. Awesome. And all I needed to do was sign my money over to them so that they could take care of my money because they wanted people on medical disability. They can't get their money straight away. They have to have what's called a payee, somebody to take care of them for them.
Yeah.
And so they wanted to be my payee, and then they wouldn't give me the money for 6 months. So what am I supposed to do? One time they said I had to call them every day in order to get my money. What am I supposed to do? Borrow someone's phone? It's harder to borrow a phone than it is a dollar. No, people don't want their phones out. And so it was stupid. And that and the System Omega made me stand out and made me go into the hospital over and over again, jail over and over again, weirding people out. Nothing really weird, just weirding people out. So they call the cops,
Yeah. I think that part really touched me because, when you think about the human nature of selfishness and greed, that you were supposed to help someone who clearly needed your help with the money that was assigned to you that was for that person, and they still didn't give you, and they clearly knew you needed that money because you needed to eat. You talked about having low blood sugar many of the times, and you couldn't eat.
Well, I mean, they're like, oh yeah, we have a check for you. It's downtown. What am I supposed to do? Ask for people money for the bus to get on the bus, get a check, and then pay 3%. And most of the time, they didn't even offer the check to me. Didn't even get it.
You also talked about this part of a girl being raped at the front of a shop, and you were trying to offer her help. I think that part really, really got me because it was. Maybe just describe the event in what you felt at that moment, what you were thinking, and how everything played out.
Yeah, I did. I wasn't thinking that right. I was going a little insane. It's really late. And I'm telling you, being that late, it was probably like 3:30 a.m. See this girl walking down the street, and she's just like the party girl, partied hard, And I have my bedroll laid out there on the sidewalk out for all because I had an RV at the time. I didn't say in the book, but
let me get one thing. At that point, you were living on the street.
right. And
Yeah.
I had this bedroll on the street, which is my blankets and stuff. And I offered her to sit down. You need a break. And she's like, "Oh, as a matter of factly, I just got raped." Fucking sent me into a shock, you know. And there was nobody open, nobody out. I didn't have a cell phone, so I take her to the 24-hour Mexican restaurant, and I tell you what happens there. They didn't know how to communicate with me. They just knew that I was some trash that needs to be out of their heart, and they didn't know why the girl was with me. She knew they were just judging her too. And cop comes in full blazing with a gun out. Jiminy Christmas scared the shit out of us. I went to jail and I never saw her again.
Just for trying to help someone who was raped
I
at
needed
that
to call
point.
911. And the people behind the counter refused to speak English enough for me to get the phone and denied the phone. I needed to call 911. So I grabbed the straws and that were right there and threw it at them. So they would call 911.
You also said that girl later ended up in jail.
Yeah, I did. I saw her in the suicide tank.
That's insane. What's a suicide tank?
So padded room. You see most of the time you see them in movies. Padded room for insane hospitals. Insane hospitals don't look like that. That's what it looks like in the jail. That's maybe state hospitals. I never been to a state hospital, but the brown padded room or the white padded room, yeah, with a grate in the bottom to piss and shit in. Yeah, and sometimes throughout the years, they only give you one meal a day or whatnot. I don't I don't know how often that time it was, but and they're naked, butt naked, yeah, and the window was open. It's crazy. She was screaming like crazy, and I overheard the cops talking about how, yeah, they DNA tested me. So what? They DNA. Why are they DNA?
Okay,
It's
they
just a
thought you
stupid
were
thing.
the one who committed the crime.
Well, they didn't even know. They were just shooting at straws. I don't know how much the girl said. Hopefully, she did talk about it. We're able to find a perpetrator. DNA test me all you want. I mean, but still, it was like an insult. Here I am trying to get a phone and get a gun drawn on me. This Mexican cop didn't even know what the hell was going on. But I was the something worth shit. That's scary.
Before we enter into a mental health discussion, I think let's go back to something you said in the book about the Mormons and the Catholics. You were trying to compare their generosity to you or to around that particular time. What was your experience with both the Mormons and the Catholics?
I was raised Mormon. Okay, I don't want. I get into my podcast, immortalself.org. But Mormons have a. If you're a member of a Mormon, then they'll help you. But if you're not a member, then they just stick to their own. Catholics, they had the dinners and everything like that. There never was a charity dinner that the Mormons put on, and yeah, and the Catholics did. One time, I was a little confused, and I took started confused some cops one time as there was some, those old children toys, right?
Yeah.
They were old and beaten up and sun worn. I would just grab some and put them on the Mormon from the Catholic Church to the Mormon Church property. And I just confused people and didn't know why I was doing that. And I think they were accusing me of theft or something. I don't know. It just was, I was not thinking clearly, but I think it was an ask for help.
You were on medications that time.
Yeah. I was on some. It could have been on medication. Now, all of this is not. I never touched any of the hard drugs. I used to smoke weed. I never touched the hard drugs. I was raised on Ritalin, and I don't need that shit. You know what I'm saying?
So what was it like with the Catholics? Because you documented a good account for them.
Well, it was they really tried to help out as much as they could. They had the Monday dinner, and they had a Monday through Friday lunch at a different Catholic at the Universal Catholic Church. They had a Monday through Friday lunch that they brought from downtown and had it at the church. And now, since then, they renovated and built a kitchen there, because the kitchen that was supplying the food shut down. And then there was always a Monday night dinner with the Greek Orthodox Catholic Church. And the Greek Orthodox, there's Father John in there, which I talk about a lot. And I probably was a little harsh on him in the book. At the time, I was angry. But he is the one that signed me up for the apartment complexes that were going to be built there, because he's a local resident of the Asylums community.
Yeah.
Is a figurehead in the community as Father John, a Greek Orthodox pastor, who happened to be a cop and older gentleman. He's probably in his late 60s by now. And he signed me up to get there into the apartment complex, but he just signed me over to the paperwork, to the lawyers that never did anything. You know what I'm saying? And so he never took responsibility for what he was representing. You know what I'm saying? So I never ended up being able to live. I would be in Isla Vista right now on the beach right now. But I guess with COVID, I'm better now. Here, I'm in the best spot of my life right now. I got everything I wanted. I don't even have money worries anymore. I'm in Utah right now, and I'm just focusing on being a podcaster, being an author, maybe doing some real estate deals.
That's really, really good. That's really good. So let's talk about mental health and, your experience with how people treat it badly and people don't, acknowledge that it's a real thing that people are fighting with, and what you suffered at that point.
I consider myself having autism, Asperger's. I'm high functioning on the spectrum. And with a broken arm, people can see that you got a broken arm and can't open the door or whatever. But if you got like a broken brain with one of these diagnoses, it's really harder because it's harder to show that there's a problem, that you actually have a thing. Because, well, I mean, the thing is I could come off of really weird sometimes, and I say the weirdest things, and be really off-putting until you get to know me. I don't know. Mental health, the stigma about that is really difficult. Mental health for me, I've seen girls that are depressed, and I wish there was something that I can do to fix it. And for me, most of the time, people just say, "Have you taken your meds? Have you taken your meds?" Like, they're concerned, but like, that's what supposed to fix it. Well, medication only helps so far. It only, you know what I'm saying? And just because you don't understand what I'm saying doesn't mean I need to take my meds. Hate that when my friends or my mom or somebody says, "You taking your meds?" I just gotta swallow my pride and be like, think about it. It hurts.
For before you got into the LA asylum, I think you were in the Los Angeles asylum.
Yeah, I was in a San Jose one and an LA one. Ooh, that LA one was, I thought the San Jose was bad. The LA one was horrid.
What was your experience there? You also said
I
a lot of
couldn't
things.
walk. You can't walk by that place max exceeded fire hazard capacity. Guarantee you. Guarantee it.
Mm.
5 people stuck to a room, 4 people stuck to a room, little curtains, and then the beds take up all the whole space. And then dinner, you wait for an hour in line. The hell is that?
So that was really some kind of mass. They're just trying to get people, as much people as they can, away from the streets, and and not really cater for them well.
Bureaucrats don't know how horrible it is, and most of those people are not really that. Most of those people don't have any way to take care of themselves. Yeah, but most of those people. But that doesn't mean that you gotta treat them like the lower rungs of society, like they've broken laws and they need to be punished for being in jail. No, build a freaking huge ass, huge, facility with parks and stuff. And why does it have to be a warehouse?
Yeah. So it was actually a warehouse.
Oh yeah. And I was in a split male and female co-ed, and then they mailed me to the male room. And after I got to the mail room, I was like, no way. And then like I said, I fainted. No way. I wasn't gonna be there. I wasn't gonna be there. No way, because that place, I couldn't walk out. There was nowhere to stand. Nowhere to stand. What am I supposed to do? Laying on my bed all day long and all night long? Oh.
And then with the medications too. Or the asylum had no medications.
But yeah, and the doctor, yeah, there was 4 months I'm in the hospital without meds. And then some doctor comes in on the weekend. I mean, Barbara. Oh, he needs meds and like action that I'm needing. After 4 months of being just fine, he's gonna inject me with the long-acting medication. It would start the problem all over again.
What was it like though in what was it like with other inmates? Would I call them inmates
It
now?
was pretty cool. In San Jose, it was pretty cool. We just hung around and hung around. A lot of people I couldn't really have good conversations with. They weren't bright enough to have a conversation with. There were some people that I could, and just favorite time of smoke break where we could be outside and have our cigarettes, and it was our favorite time. We were just waiting for the next smoke break, all of us.
Yeah. So in the asylum, the only free time you had to go outside was the smoke break. How long was that?
Yeah. Enough to smoke 2 cigarettes, about 10 minutes.
Yeah. So how did you escape though?
Okay, so there's a couple of ways, right? So I was conserved, which means they took away my rights. And the title of the book is How to Escape an Insane Asylum, so I guess I'll give that away. The thing is one time I was in San Jose and I earned the right go to 7-Eleven every once in a while to leave the facility and leave. So then I wanted to get on the bus and go. But then they had all my money, so I went back. Or at least I tried to go back. And then when I was arrested in in Barbara, barricading the door or refusing the injection after 3 months of not having meds. I didn't want an injection. Take a pill, but you can't give me something that's permanent for a month and a half.
Yeah.
Anyway, I barricaded myself in that room and they called the cops to negotiate me out of there. And then the judge let me out. And then I was free. You know the worst part of it? They didn't take care of any of my finances. And I still, to this day, my bank account is frozen because I have a charge for breaking a window in the hospital. $6,000 for breaking an unbreakable window. And yet my accounts are frozen because I don't have access to the money to pay it, you know. And I keep telling my payees to pay it, but the county makes it so impossibly hard to remember to pay it. You have to do it one at a time. And then the county eventually freezes my bank account. And I'm conserved. I have no rights. I have less rights than a minor. They can't take care of my finances for me, my credit, I get out of jail with a warrant. Get out of that. The judge says, well, the mental health wants to keep you in jail. They can't keep you in the hospital. So hospital's left for you. I'm not keeping you in jail. That's illegal. You ain't done nothing wrong. But get out. Go to the shelter. And so after I get to the shelter says you got 3 days in the shelter. And you have to be out of the shelter for 5 days. And you can come back for another 3 days. I call my mom and I get a bus ticket to Utah. As soon as I left the state of Utah, I was not conserved anymore. And the act removed my rights.
Wow.
Because I was no longer in Utah.
What you told me now sounded really, really painful because, they wanted to give you medications that would last for more than a month.
And they had no idea if that was my diagnosis. They were just assuming.
You came out from the asylum and, just like you said in the book, you actually applied for the rights to have your own education, to start writing and to start doing stuff. How was all that experience? Because as you documented, it took almost a year or more than that.
Yeah, I was conserved for about a year and a half, I think. All in all. Being locked up for a year and a half. And if you don't take the meds, they force you down and put them in your butt.
So how when they granted you your rights to education, was it when you started to write the book?
Oh, education. Yeah. I wanted to be a paralegal. I wanted something to do because I like to keep my mind busy. And I wanted to be a paralegal. But the conservator completely refused to work with me there and never answered the phone. All the correspondence that I had through the school, it was my right. It's posted on the door. I have the right to education. And if I can afford it, I can have it. And I had $3,000. I can afford $700 for a paralegal course. And it takes them 10 months to write them a check. And I call the course people, and they're like, they still haven't. I'm doing everything I can. I don't know what to tell you, and I just don't know. It was the stupidest incompetence, malfeasance, and misfeasance. It's on purpose. I would sue him for misfeasance, which means neglect, neglectful behavior unknowingly, and malfeasance, neglectful behavior knowingly, because they just were just put him there and do nothing afterwards. Why nothing got taken care of? I had, but my life, I could have gotten out of the jail out of being, how am I? They had no hope for me being cured, no hope for me being rehabilitated. Just lock him up forever. No hope for him whatsoever. And I just, it's astounding.
Yeah, it's really astounding because look at you now. You're writing, you have podcast, and you're trying to tell your own story. And I think that's pretty sound because they denied you of so many rights, even in the San Jose medical facility. They didn't allow you to pay because you talked about an illegal payphone privilege. You want to talk a bit on that?
Oh yeah, you gotta call you gotta con the payphone. When was the last time you saw a payphone? And yeah, you gotta use the payphone there. And no, you gotta have quarters or you gotta call your family. Stupid. That there and all of those hospitals. How much does it cost to put in a real phone?
I think it was just like whole corruption and neglect, and I think it was purposeful neglect on because they just see people who they feel are kind of just they have no need for them, something like that.
Yeah, it's just like no, it's just like it was a burden. We didn't need to be a burden on society.
Yeah,
we could have, the people that work there didn't have to dread coming to work. Why are we doing this drudgery? Most of these people, doesn't have to be like that. Nowadays, it's still full. You're waiting years in an acute facility or a short-term facility for these conservatorships that they're doing in order to go to a long-term facility that there's no room.
Yeah. So what year was that? What year were you freed from the facility, the LA facility?
2016. I think I left the
2016.
state.
2016. And when did you start to advocate for mental health?
I published my book May 2019.
May 2019. I mean, you already did some of those courses you long wanted to do at that point.
Yeah. I'm done with paralegal courses now. Yes, I finished them. I've also done an advanced course in real estate by now.
Yeah. That's like a big advancement, going from your whole story from what I saw. And I think that's like a testament to like anybody could really come out from.
The thing is what's weird is that they have you totally cut off from society. We didn't even have a computer. I didn't have access to the internet. We weren't allowed to have a phone. We weren't allowed to have a phone. We weren't allowed to get online. We weren't allowed any of that. And yet we're supposed to be, how are we supposed to ever be rehabilitated or becoming? So, I mean, I figured, okay, I'll get my paralegal course and maybe it'll suck being, kind of in this facility, but at least I'll have meals and I won't be going to jail anymore and this and that. I don't even have internet access, and they wouldn't give me my courses. Courses were paper books, and I would fill out a paper form and mail it back. So it was meant for people in jail. But it wouldn't have done no good. I wouldn't be able to be a paralegal. Could have done that for the rest of my life if they let me have. I could have been in Northern California right now.
That's a lot, dude. When you escaped the Asylum. Where did you go to reside?
Oh, when I was in San Jose, I made my way through the buses and the trains to Berkeley, California. That was pretty cool. I liked Berkeley. I'd go back. And then I turned myself into the hospital. I didn't have money, and I wasn't gonna be having another cycle all over again in a brand new city. Perhaps I don't know. I wanted my mom was the biggest reason why. She's like, "You gotta go back," kind of thing, and I ran away.
Your parents were
the hospital was like, "Why you come back? You're just fine." Like, well, yeah, maybe now. But.
Your parents weren't in support of you leaving the facility at that time.
Yeah, my mom wanted me to stay there, and she didn't. She just thought it was gonna help me get fixed, but it never would have. Psychiatrists don't do shit. There's no therapy. There's no way. There's nothing to. Just assuming that you're gonna be there for the rest of your life, basically.
Yeah. So they weren't even trying some kind of good.
No, it was everyone gave up, lost hope. There's much, but you lose your hope. There's a sign above the door, and yeah, honestly, because it was that bad. Sometimes I would rather be in jail. There, the food was better than in the hospital. But in jail, at least I can have coffee.
Yeah. What's one thing you think we should talk about that I haven't asked?
Well, I liked isolation the best because it's hard getting along, being in jail, jam-packed with a bunch of people. I mean, I'm there for trespassing, and I'm hanging out with murderers. Someone that just killed someone once, a couple of people. And I'm there for trespassing. You know what I'm saying?
How was jail like? I mean, the whole environment, the whole climate of jail. How was jail like?
Oh, it's a dirty, sweaty, concrete everywhere. Concrete cave. Yeah. And then most dirty, smelly. It's not really a place that you like to be. Even the workers, even the guards don't really want to be there. It's mostly just a lot of waiting to do nothing. And then you get your food and you're waiting all day, get your dinner or your lunch or your breakfast, and then it's disgusting, and then it's gone before you know it. You're not even full. And the hardest part is keeping it cool with everybody around you. That's the hardest part because everyone's so jacked up. You know, some people could be coming off of drugs or something like that too, and you just got to be really careful about what you do. You can end up with your teeth broken, your jaw wired shut. I went in there, and this kid had his jaw wired shut. He had to eat. He had to eat blended food. That stuff was disgusting. It's the same stuff that we eat, still disgusting, with a little added water, and it's just blended. He's supposed to eat it because he had his jaw wired shut because he mouthed off to the wrong person. You know what I'm saying? Little prig. Yeah, you got to be careful. When it comes down time to it, what happened? You didn't say anything either. Then you can't go anywhere.
That's really insane. Like,
did I talk about the time in my book to talk about the time this kid grabbed a knife, or he had a razor, and he slit his wrist open, and there's blood going.
Yeah.
he slit his wrist and there's blood everywhere, going everywhere and everything. Cops called that real quick.
And they never got the person who did it.
He did it to himself.
Wow.
He was committing suicide.
Wow.
Blood going everywhere. It was nasty. Then they're like, hit everyone in your bunks. And we go in your bunks that come in and taser them.
Wow. I think that was really such an adventure.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm done with it. I'm done and I'm so happy. I don't really give a rat's and who wins the election now. I'm done with my activism, my political sizing. I want mental health and Black Lives Matter, but mental health is my true cause now, you know. Because the thing is it's so insidious. I think it's really sad when people suffer from depression or bipolar or any of that and can't get a grips on it and go to drugs and self-medicate.
I think, and it's downplayed a lot, or it's been laughed at and not taken too seriously by people and others, even, people around those who suffer from this kind of mental health issues and illness.
Well, your brain chemistry is wrong. Your brain chemistry is wrong, and you're not enjoying it either,
Anyway. So what do you feel right now? Because you've been in jail, you've been in a mental health asylum, you've lived on the streets, you've had so much of these experiences in your own life. I think you've seen life to a certain extent. You should have thought about things that really happen to we as humans. What do you think is the meaning of life?
Well, I think the purpose of life is happiness. The meaning of life is which you give your purpose in life too. So it's really, I think, I have a whole podcast at immortalself.org dedicated to the idea that being happy is a choice, and no matter what's going on, your thoughts can influence on if you're happy or not. And really you choose to be happy. Yeah, it helps having freedoms and stuff like that, but even with everything, you won't guarantee happiness. You have to have it as an inner joy.
We are getting close to this conversation now. I just like to ask, my guest on the podcast to just say anything they want for the listeners to hear, anything at all, for 1 minute, anything you want the listeners to know or hear.
Well, no, I really appreciate you listening to my friend here and listening to this podcast. I know he enjoys it, and thank you for listening to me so far. I hope it gives you a little insight into what it was to have this revolving door. It really was a revolving door. And there's this guy that says, this TV evangelist that says, when you're drowning, you don't need somebody to teach you how to swim. When you're drowning, you need somebody to pick you up and save you from drowning. And so, that's what they were trying to do. They were just trying to remove my responsibilities so far, so much, so that I couldn't even be in society. Please buy my book, How to Escape an Insane Asylum by Brian Carpenter.
Yes, by Brian Carpenter. I would also post your links in the description to your Amazon books and to your social media and to your website. I'll post them in the descriptions for the listeners and they could always check it.
Great. Yes. Yeah, my social links are at Brian.gives. Brian, Ian.gives. They're all my social links.
Yeah, I already have them. So thank you for sharing your story with us and, your experience for this time you gave to me. I appreciate it. Hey there, I hope you liked my conversation with Brian Carpenter. And thank you for listening to the end, though. If you want to know more about Brian Carpenter, you just check the links in the description. I have a link to his books and to his social profile. Also, follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Tinted Neuron. Let's always keep conversations there if you have questions, comments, or concerns. Thank you to everybody that has been supporting my journey in this podcast. Subscribers, listeners, all of you. I see you and thank you so, so much. That's it for me this week. And until then, stay curious.